I guess to say like, yeah. So good afternoon. My name is Tom Dardarian. I was the president of ACOOG from 2019 to 2020. I was 48 to 49 years old. I'm not sure if Bobby Debs was younger than me, but I might have been the youngest president of ACOOG. Not really sure. Debatable. I'm going to go with it because in my mind, it sounds good. I always wanted to be a doctor. Part of this I gave in my presidential speech. I think my mother was a neonatal nurse. And I swear that when she was raising me, she would hold me and whisper in my ear, "You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor." And it's all I ever knew. It's all I ever wanted to be. I went to school at the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. I grew up right outside of D.C. I was the son of an aerospace engineer. So when someone would say, "Is your dad a rocket scientist?" I would say, "Actually, yes, he is a rocket scientist." So remember that I grew up right outside of Washington, D.C. because it really dovetails into what is my passion. And so I went to George Washington University. And then while I was there, not only was I interested in going into medicine, I also became very interested in just the study of why people made decisions and the reasons why they made decisions, which actually led me to a degree in economics. So my actual undergraduate degree is in economics with a minor in communications. Following graduation, then I took my post-baccalaureate classes to go to medical school. And then I wound up matriculating at the time was University of Health Sciences, which is now the Kansas City University of Medicine and Biosciences in Kansas City, Missouri. I spent 2 years out there. And then for the next 2 years, I was able to come back to PCOM and do my rotations through PCOM because I knew I wanted to get back to the East Coast. And so PCOM has an excellent reputation on the East Coast. And so through PCOM, I was able to do my third and fourth year rotations. Honestly, I thought I was going to be a surgeon. I always thought I was going to be trauma surgeon, general surgeon. I tried to like everything else and I couldn't. And then I delivered a baby. And the first time I delivered a baby, that was it. It was like the most magical thing I had ever done in my entire life. It was through Suburban General. And so I delivered a baby and that was it. And then again, I did orthopedic surgery. I didn't do ENT, but I did urology. Again, a couple rotations in general surgery. I just, like, something always brought me back. Only thing that came close was plastic surgery. I came really, really, really close. But in the end, I said, I became a doctor and to kind of practice medicine, practice surgery. And that's the one thing I loved about obstetrics and gynecology is it really gave you that ability to not only practice internal medicine and to develop an incredible relationship with your patient, but it also allowed me to do surgery, which is a blessing and a curse because I think a lot of times what gets us into trouble in OBGYN is that we just have such an amazing relationship with our patients that we try to do things through like incisions that are like this big, right? And so there we are because we know the patient. We're like, oh, we're going to give this great little incision, and then we're struggling for like 3 hours, and and then if you ever see one of the general surgeons, they're just like done. But I love it, right? You see a patient. In fact, I have patients now. One of my patients the other day was like, "God, Dr. Dardarian, I've been seeing you since I've been 16 years old." So it's amazing. She's now 34, right? So it's like 18 years of seeing her every year through a myriad of issues. Sometimes just regular well woman exams and sometimes for other things. But it's just amazing that we have that connection with our patients. So I digress back to falling in love with OBGYN. And then from there, I did a traditional rotating internship. And I did that through the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. Absolutely love that. That was one of the greatest things ever. It's funny, everybody's always rushing to get on in their career and rushing to do things. And sometimes taking years, like even a gap year or a year doing the rotating internship was extremely valuable. I think it made me a much better doctor. From there, I enrolled or was accepted into the OBGYN residency at PCOM. And then along the way, there was an opportunity that arose at Pennsylvania Hospital. And so after talking it over, after speaking with some other attendings, they said, if the opportunity is there, you should take it. you should go ahead and take it. And Pennsylvania Hospital is the nation's first hospital. It is one of the oldest OBGYN residencies in the United States. And so I applied and was accepted. And so I actually was saying these first things, but I was the first DO to actually finish that residency. But when I was there, I got to meet this amazing maternal fetal medicine doctor who was also a DO in the past President's College, and that was Bobby Debs. And while I was there, I was the only DO in all 4 classes. And so he was very special to me, and he took me under his wing. I don't even think there were any DO attendings at the time. I think it was just him and I. And so we developed a bond. And from there, my mentor, right? And just always looked out for me, always went out of his way for me, would teach me any chance that he got. And so when I finished up, he had then introduced me to the college. And that's how I wound up at the college. My first meeting was incredible. It was one of the best things I ever came to. I was just taken aback by the family, the camaraderie, and actually the learning. The learning was great. I remember being in there and just like, you're a resident or just finishing residency, and I was just like a sponge and like taking everything down, taking notes. It was just great. And then after that, we would go to dinners, and you go to dinners. And not only were dinners great because you got to meet people from all over the country, but people were bouncing cases off each other. People were almost like stump your colleague at dinner, and you would come out of there and you would almost invariably come out with like 1 or 2 little tidbits that you could take back to your practice after being here. And I'll never forget that. It was just an amazing, amazing time. So from there, Bobby had turned to me and said, ever think about a committee that you want to be on? How do you want to serve the college? And I said, well, look, I grew up outside of DC. I've always had a strong interest in politics. I'd really like to be involved in government affairs. He said, well, there's nothing open in government affairs right now, but you can get on this committee called the Continuing Medical Education Committee. I think that'll be really good for you. You just came out of an academic program. I think it's a good starting point for you. And so I said, okay, great, put me down. So I joined the Continuing Medical Education Committee. You're probably going to see a reoccurring theme of all the presidents. We were either in the Continuing Medical Education Committee or PESC or MNP. Those were kind of the big 3. I would like to say that CMEC is the toughest committee. Some people would disagree. PESC was pretty difficult too, but I would like to say that we were pretty tough committee. So I worked with one of the past presidents who probably already did her interview, and that would be Octavia Cannon. And Octavia and I did our first conference together. And so that became mentor number 2, and that was Octavia. And so Octavia and I did a conference together, and then I started meeting everybody else, and then all the past presidents. Again, once you become involved and start putting lectures together, you start to learn who are the experts in the fields, and then you have a conversation with them, and then that conversation begets another conversation, and then you meet there, and then they introduce you to somebody else, and then you start to build this amazing network of physicians, and your family just expands. It's almost like an they tell 2 friends, and so on and so on and so on. So it was just absolutely amazing. So I was on the CMEC committee first as a member, and then I moved up to be chair of the committee. And then while I was on the committee, I got to meet my future work partner, and that would be Catherine Bernardini, who became president after me. But that's just another amazing story that came out of being not only on CMEC, but just being a member of the college. After I was on CMEC and chair of CMEC, I was tapped to be on the board, and I served on the board of trustees. And then after serving on the board of trustees, then I moved on to the executive team, which was then vice president, president-elect president, immediate past president. I am finishing up my term as the chair of the Medical Education Foundation. That's a 2-year term, and I'm finishing that up. And at that point, my service to the college will be complete. In terms of volunteering, but I will always service the college whenever they need me. I've actually had to do a little bit of soul searching on myself, and it really comes down to finding out what is your hobby or passion outside of work? And it took a long time to do that. In fact, I'm giving a talk on this, and it really hit me because I was um, at a christening, and after the christening, you go to the luncheon afterwards, and somebody said, "So Tom, what do you like to do when you're not at work?" And like I'd like crickets, and you feel like probably was like 30 seconds to a minute that it took, but I felt like an hour for me. I was like, music. I love music and I love concerts. And so really basically allowing yourself to not make excuses, to not do things that allow you from some relief from your workday or some pleasure. That's what I would say. So it's you find your passion and you carve out time for what you're passionate about outside of work. And that's really been a great thing for me. The second thing I will say is exercise. There's a lot of studies on physician burnout and exercise, and that's been another thing that's been really, really helpful for me. Is just either getting on the elliptical or getting on the bike or getting on the treadmill. It doesn't have to be long, 30, 45 minutes a day. Just burn some calories and just listen to a podcast, not about medicine, and just get on there, and it changes your mood immensely. So I do have a daughter who is in the nursing program at Drexel University. And then my son, who never wanted to do medicine and still thinks he wants to do engineering, the other day said, well, I could think about maybe being a doctor. So he's got a little more time. He's only a junior in high school, so we'll see. And there's a lot of people that I've run into that did engineering undergrad and wound up going into medical school. So maybe I'll hold out some hope for him. My third daughter, she's in business analytics. So I think she's gone. Yeah, so that's so if you were to say, so I talked about a little bit about my passion outside of work, which is, again, music and concerts, but my passion besides seeing patients is always advocating on behalf of our patients, right? This idea of government interference in the exam room, legislating what we can and can't talk about, how we can take care of our patients, and quite honestly, telling our patients that they do not have the ability to think for themselves and make decisions of their own bodies for themselves is something that I think is very troubling. And so, who better than to be a voice for our patients than ourselves? And so that's been very empowering. It's been a passion of mine. I think that when you look at how you can, there's always, just for my undergraduate, there's microeconomics and macroeconomics. And so in the micro side, we have these little patient interactions every day, right? You see a patient after patient after patient. That's a micro interaction. When you work on advocacy for the benefit of all your patients, that's a macro interaction. So that idea of these macro interactions that for the benefit and for the good of all our patients are what sort of drives me into that space.
Who's your favorite band?
Dave Matthews Band, right? 24/7, all day long, all day. I've probably seen them. I can't even count the number of times. Now, I think a couple of things. Number one is I would say that for any people that are listening to this, there are, I read this quote one time. It's obstacles are what you see when you lose sight of your goals, right? And so I know that there are a lot of people that say oh, if you're a man, how can you succeed in OBGYN, right? And I think, when there's a will, there's a way. Do you have to work a little bit harder? Of course you do. But if you're truly passionate about it and you deliver good care and you're respectful, you can build a very, very successful practice. I think that the beauty of OBGYN also is the subspecialties, right? And so you can also tailor your practice to what you want to do, whether it's complex family planning, reproductive endocrinology, GYN oncology, maternal fetal medicine. The opportunities are endless. And so you can, tailor your practice or tailor your education into that.